Okay, so good afternoon, my dear researcher learners. So we are back. Andito na naman po tayo sa ating ETULAY online tutorial and we are leveling up. Yan, because we are now in DepEd TV. So, as we begin our journey in this second quarter, yeah, my dear researcher, our research enthusiasm increases. Yan, we are very excited na kasi nagbabalik ang ating ETULAY online tutorial sa quarter 2. So again, I am your tutor, Tina, para sa Practical Research 2. So let's start. Okay, for today's topic, we will be using yung quarter 2 week 1 ng ating module from Central Office which has a title Understanding Data and Ways to Systematically Collect Data. Yan. Okay, so in this episode, we will be unlocking two learning competencies. And first, choose appropriate quantitative research design and describe sampling procedure and the sample. Yan. So, let's start this by answering this question. In building your dream house, what do you usually take in considerations before you start building it? Ano nga ba yung mga factors na ikino-consider natin before tayo magpatayo ng ating dream house? Una, we have the area of the lot. Of course, you need to have a lot to be able to build a house. Tama? So, gaano ba kalawak? Gaano ba kakipot? And of course, the budget. Without the budget, it will not be possible to build our dream house. So, kailangan pa natin mag-prepare ng budget. And of course, the structural design or yung gusto natin na design or disenyo based dito sa dalawa pang factor na binanggit natin. So, in short, kapag magpapatayo tayo ng dream house natin, we need to have what we... So, ano nga ba yung plan na tinutukoy natin? This serves as an overall strategy. Yung overall strategy, pangkalahatang strategy na kung saan ang dami nating mga factors na ikino-consider before building our dream house. So if we're going to relate that to research, we mean here the research design. So ano nga ba yung research design na tinutukoy natin? Alamin natin. So when we say research design, it is defined as the rational and coherent overall strategy that the researcher uses to incorporate all the vital components of the research study. So in short, itong si research design ang nagsiserve as yung ating backbone. Kumbaga sa isang individual without backbone, you will not be able to do locomotion, tama? So in here din sa research, without the design, your research will not be possible. And we have different types of research design. So una, we have what we call descriptive. We also have correlational, ex post facto, quasi-experimental, and we have experimental. So to be able to understand the differences among these types of research designs, let's now do learning task number 1. Ready na ba kayo? Okay, I believe ready na kayo. Let's start. We are going to do the fact or a bluff. So fact ang ibibigay nating sagot kung sa tingin natin tama ang statement na binibigay. Bluff naman kung sa tingin natin ay mali. So, number 1. When little is known about the research problem, then it is appropriate to use descriptive research design because it is a design that is exploratory in nature. Ano kaya ito? Is it a fact or a bluff? Okay, tignan nga natin kung tama ang inyong mga sagot. Fact. Tama. Bakit kaya fact ito? It's because when we are dealing with descriptive research design, we mean here the exploration of the who, what, when a certain phenomenon happens. So, ito yung kadalasan na ginagamit natin. Ito yung commonly na ginagamit na research, most especially sa mga estudyante natin like you. Yan. So, number 2. Correlational research design seeks to establish an association between variables. It does not seek cause and effect relationship like the descriptive research. It measures variables as it occurs. Is it a fact or a bluff? Okay, tignan natin kung tama ang inyong mga sagot. Ano nga ba ang correct answer? Fact. Tama din itong statement na to. Bakit kaya? It's because correlational research design actually seeks the cause and effect relationship between or among two or more variables. Yan. So meron tayong a relationship dito sa dalawang variables na binibigay natin dito sa ating research. So kapag ganun ang ating situation, meron tayong kino-compare or meron tayong nire-relate na variables, we can use correlational research design. Ready na ba kayo sa number 3? Okay, tignan natin. If the objective of the study is to measure a cause from a pre-existing effect, then ex post factor research design is more appropriate to use. In this design, the researcher has no control over the variables in the research study. Is it a fact or a bluff? Tignan nga natin kung tama ang iyong mga sagot. It's a fact. Bakit kaya? It's because ex post factor research design actually is being used kapag may pre-existing tayo na effect. And we are going to come up doon sa mga causes ng certain na effect na yan. Okay, so yan ang use ni ex post facto. Kaya may word na ex post. Yan. So sana all may ex. Okay, so number 4. An experimental research design aims to measure the causal relationship between variables. The partiality of this design comes from assigning subjects, participants, or respondents into their groups. Is it a fact or a bluff? Okay, let's check kung tama ang inyong mga answers. It's a bluff. Bakit kaya? It's because this type of research actually is under the quasi-experimental research design. So, quasi means almost but not totally. Ibig sabihin, it's somewhat semi-experimental. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng quasi-experimental. The difference is that in here, pag sinabi nating quasi-experimental, there come a time na pwede nating i-manipulate ang variable depending of course on the nature of the research na ginagawa mo. Okay. So ready ka na ba sa last question for this learning task? Okay. Experimental research design is based on the scientific method called experiment, with the procedure of gathering data under a controlled or manipulated environment. Is it a fact or a bluff? Okay, tignan natin ang inyong mga sagot. Fact. Bakit kaya fact? Because when we are talking of experimental research design, we are following what we call the scientific method ng experimentation. So experiment, from the term experiment, andyan yung experimental research design. Experimental research design is actually being used lalo na doon sa field ng medicine. Yan, at sa mga science-related na mga subjects natin, just like sa STEM or Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics na strand, you'll be able to create an experimental research later on as you go to doon sa inyong mga napiling mga topic. Pwede rin siyang gamitin na tawag dito sa college life ninyo, itutuloy ninyo, magpo-progress lang yung research ninyo. Okay, so for this, good job sa inyo dahil sa pagsagot ninyo ng isang napakahusay na task. At dahil dyan, meron kayong first badge, the task 1 completer. Okay, good job tayo dyan. So, i-continue natin to be able to understand it. Let's do naman task number 2. In here, sa task number 2 natin, you are going to identify the quantitative research design appropriate for the sample research titles below. So, choose from the choices given. Ano ba yung mga choices natin or yung mga pagpipilian? So, we have the same, descriptive, correlational, ex post facto, quasi-experimental, and experimental. So, ready na ba tayo sa question number 1? Okay. Number 1, this is a sample topic or research title. So, ready na kayo? Number 1, relationship between academic stressors and learning preferences of senior high school students. Alin kaya sa mga ito ang appropriate na research design? I believe marami kayong idea dyan dahil napakagagaling yung mga researchers. Okay, let's check. It's correlational. Yan. Hanapin natin yung clue. There is the word relationship. Yan. So pag sinabi natin, di ba, relationship between two variables, we mean here correlational research design. Okay, so number 2. Reading electronic learning materials as a support for vocabulary of grade 1 pupils. Ano kayang uri ng quantitative research design ang appropriate dito? Okay, tignan natin kung tama ang inyong mga sagot. It's a quasi-experimental or experimental. So, pwede sa dalawang ito, depende sa kung paano natin i-construct yung review of related natin, yung chapter 1, chapter 2, as to the last one na chapter natin. So, nakadepende pa rin ito sa inyo as a researcher kung experimental ba siya, purely experimental, or quasi-experimental. Number 3, impact of the implementation of COVID-19 health protocols in supermarkets on consumer behaviors. Ano kayang research design ang appropriate dito? Let's check. Oh, it's ex post facto. Bakit ulit ex post facto? Because there is an existing effect and we need to come up with the cause of that effect. Ano nga ba yung effect dito if we're going to analyze this? This is the impact of implementation of COVID-19 health protocols. So there is an existing effects. Okay, next. Effects of morning exercise on the health anxiety level of senior citizens. Ano kaya ang the best na gamitin natin dito? Let's check kung tama ang inyong mga sagot. Ex post facto again. So, nakikita nyo naman, may clue tayo dyan, effects. So, may existing effects and we need to come up with the causes of that effects. And for for number 5, measuring the gadgets usage of children at home during COVID-19 community quarantine. Ano kayang appropriate na quantitative research design ang pwede rito? Okay, tignan natin ang inyong mga sagot kung tama. Descriptive. Why descriptive? Because there is a phenomenon. Actually, this is still happening, yung tinatawag nating community quarantine. Medyo lumuwag lang ng konti yung quarantine natin, but still we are under pa rin ng community quarantine. So, there is an existing phenomenon and we need to come up with the what, yung phenomenon na yan or kung ano ba yung related dyan sa phenomenon na yan, we need to measure the gadget usage and therefore it is described to us descriptive. Next, level of academic achievement of senior high schools in different learning modalities. Ano kaya ang appropriate research design dito? Okay, tignan natin ang inyong mga sagot kung tama. Descriptive or correlational. Either of the two will do. So, pwede rin correlational because you need to correlate yung level ng academic achievement doon sa different learning modalities. Yan. Or pwede rin namang descriptive because you just want to know the level of academic achievement. Yan. So, either of the two pwede. Next, effects of storytelling on quality of sleep of children. Ano kaya ang appropriate research design dito? Okay, nakuha kaya ninyo? Ex post facto. Yan, meron na naman tayong clue dyan, the effect. So, there is a pre-existing effect. So, we need to determine yung causes ng effects na yan. Okay, so I believe nakuha ninyo ang mga tamang sagot because you are mahuhusay na researchers. Okay, so for that, good job na naman po tayo. Meron na naman tayong pangalawang badge, ang Task 2 Completer Badge. Okay, so na-unlock na natin ang unang learning competency natin. So let's proceed now doon sa natitira pa na learning competency. So after having now the concrete plan on building your house, so relate natin ulit siya doon sa question natin earlier on the dream house. So how many workers will you consider to participate in constructing your house? So dito naman after you have come up with your concrete plan, let's proceed now doon sa next step ninyo. Ang paghahanap or pagbibilang or pagko-consider kung ilang workers ba ang gagawa ng iyong dream house. So when we are talking about the workers, we mean here the total manpower, meaning to say, number of individuals who will participate in building your dream house. If we're going to relate that again to research, we mean here participants or what we call population. So what is a population? So in research, this refers to the totality of all the objects, elements, persons, and characteristics under consideration in your research. So this population or yung mga elements, persons na yan ay may tinatawag na common characteristics about which the research aims to explore. You will not be able to come up with a population na wala namang commonalities or walang common characteristics because it will not give you a valid um, response or a valid na data later on. Okay, so we have two kinds of population. We have first the target population and we have the accessible population. So when we are talking of the target population, example is this: all senior high school students enrolled in STEM or Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics in the Schools Division Office of Pangasinan 2. So when we are talking of the target population or the true population, yan, medyo wide siya. Schools Division Office of Pangasinan 2. It is one division. But if we're going to compare that to accessible population, as you can see, the difference is that dito sa accessible population, nag-limit lang siya sa San Fabian National High School. Where in fact, San Fabian National High School is a part or under siya ng Schools Division Office ng Pangasinan 2. So accessible, kaya siya sinabing accessible, the researcher have yung mas makabubuti or yung mas mapapadali sa kanya na kung saan makaka-come up pa rin siya ng result na kung i-compare natin doon sa wider population is parehas pa rin. Okay, so that's the difference between the two. Now, what if the population is too many, too costly, time-consuming, or impractical to consider? So what will happen now to your population? Of course, you will be able now to pick the representative. So ano ba yung representative na yan? So if you're going to compare that to the world of pageantry, kasi mahilig tayo sa pageant, tayong mga Pinoy. Yan. So, 'di ba, if we are going to join yung the Miss Universe, yung Miss International, Miss Universe, yan, yung Miss World, isa lang ang representative ng Pilipinas kasi hindi naman natin pwedeng i-join lahat ng babae natin na qualified doon sa popular na competition na yon, di ba? So, nag-choose tayo ng tinatawag na representative. So, if we're going to relate that to research, tinatawag naman natin siya na sample. So, what is sample? So, sample is actually the representative subset of population. What is this subset of population na tinutukoy natin? Ito yung mga nilimit mo na member or linilimit mo na individual na magpa-participate ngayon doon sa iyong napili or na come up na research. So, pertaining now to the systematic process of selecting the group or the samples to be analyzed in the research study is known as sampling. So don't be confused. When we are talking of the process, we mean here sampling. But when we are talking of the representative or yung mismong representative ng population, we mean here sample. Sampling is actually has a goal, and that is to get information from the group that represents the target population. So dapat dito, sabi nga natin, inire-represent niya yung buong population. So it will be valid, magkakaroon tayo ng validation kung ito bang mga representatives na to or the samples natin ay nire-represent na niya mismo yung whole population. So, once a good sample is obtained, the generalizability and applicability of findings increases. So, meron tayong in-emphasize na word dito, that is a good sample. So, there are different approaches now in identifying the sample size. So, yung sample size na tinutukoy natin dito, tandaan natin, it should be a good sample. Yan. So, we have the heuristics. So, this approach now refers to the general rule or the rule of thumb na kung saan it serves as the earliest established approach. So, here is the sample. If you're going to look at the table, yan, meron tayong mga research designs dyan, and there are the corresponding or suggested numbers of subjects or participants na po pwede. So, you have in the descriptive, pwedeng 10 to 20%, Sa comparative research, pwedeng 15 subjects or groups. Sa correlational, pwedeng 100 to 200. Sa exposed factor naman, pwedeng 30 and above. Experimental, 30 or more. Still, these are just suggested numbers. Nakadepende pa rin yan sa total na population at sa kung ano ang nature ng research na ginagamit natin. And of course, literature review is also one of the approach na pwede nating gamitin. So what is this? This refers to reading similar or related literature and studies to your current research study, in which we can find yung mga ideas doon sa kung gaano karami ang samples na ginamit nitong research na to. So if you have similar or related na study, pwede sigurong i-adapt natin yung number dito na ginamit sa research na to. It's because they are considered related. So still, depende pa rin yan sa location na gagamitin ninyo in conducting your research. Then we also have the formulas. Yan, medyo may mathematics tayo dito talaga. So formulas are also being established for computation of an acceptable sample size. So meron tayong formula na pwedeng gamitin dito, si Cochran. And ito po yung mga ginamit natin dito ng mga variable. So given na po dito. And you want now to determine how many households whose breadwinner work on-site during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, pwede nating i-assume na half ng breadwinners ay working on-site. So, therefore, this assumption will give you a maximum variability. So, yung P is equal to 0.5 and now gusto mo ng 95% na level of confidence and at least 5% or plus minus na precision. Therefore, it will give you a Z value of 1.96. This is just a sample. So, kung titignan natin yung formula, yan, i-substitute natin yung mga given dito. So, we will come up with the result na 384.16. Tandaan natin, wala namang taong 0.16. So, we are referring to sample dito. Therefore, ang kukunin nating bilang ng ating participants or ng sample ay 384. To further understand kung paano ba gagawa ng sample or yung sampling na tinutukoy natin, pwede nyong i-visit itong 2 online websites na ito na pwedeng makatulong sa atin sa pag-come up ng ating mga sample size. Yan. Okay, so we also have what we call probability sampling. So ano nga ba yung probability sampling na yan? So nasa parang statistics na tayo, nasa part na tayo ng statistics. So we have the simple random sampling, stratified random sampling, cluster sampling, and also we have the systematic sampling. So ano nga bang pinagkaiba ng apat na yan? So una, si simple random sampling, all members of the accessible population are given an equal chance to be selected. Or in short, pwede tayong gumamit nitong sample na mga pamamaraan kung paano tayo kukuha ng samples. Wherein, sa dami ng population, pwede tayong gumamit ng fishbowl, kukuha tayo o kaya naman magdojolats tayo or yung ruleta in Tagalog. So, pwede natin gamitin yan. So, all have a chance to win. Yan. Kumbaga, parang yung ginagawa ni Kuya Willie. Yan. So, pwede tayong mag-select ng, let's say for example, nagpasulat kayo ng pangalan and then raffle na lang, pwede din yon. Kung interested silang lahat na mag-join. So, depende pa rin yan sa nabilang yung population. So, you can visit this link, yan, to practice kung paano ba nangyayari itong simple random sampling. Okay, now how about the stratified random sampling? Yan, so, the samples here are chosen from subgroups and not directly from the entire population. So, dito, gumagawa muna tayo ng subgroups before tayo mag-come up doon sa samples natin. Yan. So, in this procedure, it is best used when the variables of the study are also grouped into classes. So, paano ba nangyayari itong stratified random sampling? Let's take this as an example. So, gusto natin i-join ang junior high school sa research natin. So, gumawa tayo ngayon ng subgroups, grade 7, grade 8, grade 9, up to grade 10. And then sa grade 7 na yan, lahat ng mga characteristics nila or they have common characteristics na sa tingin natin hindi masyadong makikita doon sa mga grade 10. So, kaya ginagamit minsan ang stratified random sampling. Then we also have an example. A population of 600 junior high school students includes 180 grade 7, 160 grade 8, 150 grade 9, and 110 grade 10. So if the computed sample size is 240, the following proportionate sampling will be as follows. Yan. So eto po ngayon yung division ng number of sample size per subgroups. Yan. So hindi siya equally divided. Yan. So, sa grade 7, 72, grade 8, 65, grade 9, 60, and sa grade 10, 43 to satisfy yung number of samples natin na 240. Okay. About cluster sampling naman, in here, we are going to have yung subgroups or clusters. Yan. So, paano ba yung clustering na yan? It is actually a method where multiple clusters of people from the chosen population will be created na in order to have homogeneous characteristics. So, let's take this an example. A researcher would like to interview all the senior high school students across Pangasinan. As you can see, it's very wide. So, as researcher cluster will be selected to satisfy the plan size. So, pwede natin siya i-cluster muna before coming up doon sa representatives per cluster. So, kumbaga, i-group natin siya into different clusters and from that clusters, kukuha naman tayo ng representatives nila. Yan. So, pwede rin natin gamitin halimbawa for cluster 1 kung region naman ang pinag-uusapan natin, pwedeng cluster 1 sa region, cluster 2 naman yun dun tayo sa division, sa cluster 3 sa district kapag ka sa region. But if in here, so Pangasinan tayo, siguro division lang tayo then sa district. Yan. Then example, ganito. So from different clusters, kumuha tayo ng sample. Yan. To come up yung doon sa samples natin or yung final na sample natin. Then, so systematic sampling naman on the other hand, is as simple as selecting samples every end. So it's up to the researcher. Let's say for example, sinubgroup mo yung iyong yung iyong population or yung sample mo na, then gusto mo pa na mas mapaliit pa or mas malimit pa yung bilang ng iyong mga sample. So you're going to select every end. Let's say for example, every second, every fifth, every eighth. It's up to you or it's up to the researcher kung paano siya pipili dito sa systematic sampling. So for example, yan, meron kang total population na 75 and you have 25 na samples. So from there, gagamitin natin si sampling, every third na person doon, yun ang kukunin niya. Yan. So every third na ng group na yon, yun yung kanyang kukunin. So in short, nailimit pa niya yung limited na samples. We have now unlocked ang ating mga learning competencies. Yan. So, napakahuhusay ninyong mga learner researchers. And for that, you deserve a virtual clap for accomplishing task 1 and task 2. Yan. Good job tayo. So, list of our references. And again, andito na naman po si yung Tutor Tina na nagsasabing upang ang kaalaman ay maging siksik, umaapaw at hitik, tayo ay manaliksik. Okay, so mapapanood pa rin po tayo sa official Facebook page ng DepEd EdTech Unit at ng DepEd tayo, and also please visit ang ating YouTube channel, ang DepEd Educational Technology Unit at ang ating DepEd TV. So kita-kits ulit tayo sa susunod na Friday!